I'm Idiotech, and this is my review of Undertale. Everyone on my top 10 games of 2015 list was like, where is Undertale? Why didn't you review Undertale? Why isn't Undertale on the list? Now, the reason is because I bought the game, played about an hour of it, didn't find it particularly engaging, and refunded it. Now, that was a mistake, and I'm happy to admit that was a mistake. Having now sat down and played through the entire game, I'm very happy that I did. It's a very compelling experience, it has some great characters, and some great story and design. However, the game does have problems, and I am going to discuss those in this review. If you are not open to criticism in regards to Undertale, I strongly encourage you to stop watching this video now. For everyone else, let's get into it. So let's talk about some of the good things first. The thing this game does exceptionally well is character development and character design. Each of the characters in this game, and there are many, many, many characters in this game, are compelling in some way or another. The way that this is done is through the art style. It's also done through the way that text is rendered to the screen. Each character will be using a different font, so you'll be able to recognize them instantly. Each character has a different sound for that font as it's written out across the screen. Somehow, and it is really quite a masterpiece in this regard, the developer of this game, using Game Maker and some pretty terrible graphics, if I'm honest, has managed to convey some of the most memorable characters I've seen in a video game in recent years. The character design in this game is top notch, and one of the major reasons to pick up this title. Another great thing about the game is its storytelling. It's very fourth wall breaking, but not in a gimmicky way. It's done to forward the story. It's done to recognize the existence of the player. It's done to emphasize that the game knows that you've done things in previous playthroughs, and it's incredibly clever, and I can't commend the developer enough here. It's very hard to discuss without going into spoilers, and I really don't want to spoil the game for you. It is something you need to experience for yourself, but to suffice is to say, the storytelling in this game is absolutely wonderful, and the character design is fantastic. Another great thing about this game, probably the best thing about this game in my opinion, is the soundtrack. It's amazing, and the covers and remixes people are doing of it are even better. The soundtrack in this game is vast. There's over 101 tracks. There's loads here, and it's great. It's memorable, it's iconic. Each song has a different vibe to it. It fits the theme of the area you're in or what's happening in the game. It's great. It's real instruments, it's chiptunes. If you're not going to pick up this game, I strongly encourage you to check out the soundtrack because it really is that good. Another good aspect of the game is its combat/conversation system. Unlike many RPGs, this game gives you the option to be a pacifist, to not engage in combat, and to mercy every creature you come across. I really like this system. Now, the combat system itself is really quite simplistic. You wait for a bar to move from the left of the screen to the right of the screen, and you hit the Z key and a specific time to try and line it up with the center of this weird object, and if you do that, you'll do the most amount of damage. Pretty simple. The conversation system, however, is a lot more complex. You have to talk to the character and work out what it is that you need to say to get them to back down from a fight. I found this very engaging for the most part, and I really, really like the system overall. The next element to the combat system is the defensive mode. So every time you attack or have a conversation move, they attack you, and you have to dodge a bullet hell section. Each of these bullet hell sections is different depending on the character you're fighting, and they can be very, very challenging at times. They're at their best when they're in a boss fight. The boss fights in this game are amazing, really good. The UI changes constantly throughout this game. The game breaks its own rules periodically. You'll go up against a boss and the whole game will just change and you'll have to adapt on the fly. I love the combat system in this game, especially in the boss fights. Again, I don't really want to spoil things here, but you'll be challenged time and time again, and those fights can be incredibly hard and very frustrating, but also very rewarding. Another element of the game is puzzle solving. Now, this is hit and miss for me, but for the most part it was good. The puzzle solving in the early to the mid game is quite good, but in the late game you find yourself repeating the same puzzles again and again, but for the most part the puzzle solving was challenging and engaging. There are a lot of secrets and Easter eggs in this game, a lot of them. There are certain things that I won't spoil, but here's one. At a certain time of day, which I'm not going to tell you, in the real world, if you're in a certain location, you will experience something. Only at that time of day. The developer has gone out of his way to fill this game with secrets, hidden areas, hidden conversation options. It's great. I love this. It's something that only an indie developer can do. Most developers are afraid to make content and then put that behind some kind of hidden wall that most people will never see. This game does that, and I can't commend the developer enough. It encourages exploration, it encourages wonder and wanting to go back and check stuff over and over and over again because something might have changed. It's fantastic. I love that element of this game. There really are so many things to discover in this game, and that adds a lot to its replay value as well. The game remembers what you have done. If you have done an action and then reloaded a save, the game remembers, and it will call you out on that. It's part of the fourth wall breaking mechanic. It plays with things like save games. I can't really talk about it in any detail. Just suffice it to say, it is expertly handled. The sheer amount of detail in this game, the amount of attention to detail on behalf of the developer is astounding. It truly is, and it's something you have to experience for yourself to really understand what I'm talking about here. But it's amazing. I was blown away by the end of the game at how much detail and attention to detail is in this title. It really is a masterpiece on those fronts. Now, let's talk about the bad things. Now, the art style. This is subjective, obviously, and some people will love the art style of this game. However, it doesn't do anything to differentiate itself from every other 2D, retro-inspired 8-bit RPG that exists on the market, and there are a lot of them. I see them on an almost daily basis, and when I saw this game, when it first came out, it didn't stand out to me in any way. The character designs are really good, and once you get into the later parts of the game, the art style actually starts to come together more, but the early portion of this game just does not visually impress, and I think it will put a lot of people off, so I'm going to have to give it a negative point there. My biggest issue with this game is the pacing. The later half of the game is incredibly exciting and engaging, and there's tons of stuff to do, and you're constantly engaging in boss battles. It's fantastic. The first half of the game, however, is dull. Not much happens. You'll spend a lot of time walking from point A to point B, interacting with an object, reading a piece of paper, learning about the world. It's not that engaging, and honestly, I found myself bored at multiple points. There were lots of times in the early portion of this game that I walked away from my computer because I needed a break. It was boring, and I'm sorry to have to say that, but the early portion of this game is simply dull. So, the pacing could have been tightened up there. Now, the game initially, when it was being proposed on Kickstarter, was only going to be a very short game, a couple of hours long, and then the developer got a lot more money than they were expecting, and so I think this has led to the game being bloated and slightly inflated. The later portion of the game does have some pacing issues as well. Some of the puzzles are repeated over and over and over again, and I just feel the thing needed to be edited down a little more than it is. The problem when you're a single creator and you're making a piece of art is that you maybe don't realize when something needs to be edited. And in this case, I feel the pacing of Undertale is slightly off, especially at the beginning of the game. The random encounter system is another bugbear for me. Now, you may love this, and it may be a subjective thing. If you love JRPGs and you love the random encounter system, then good for you. But for me, I like to know when I'm about to come up against an enemy so I can prepare for that fight or potentially avoid it and come back to it later. I do not like random encounter systems in general, and in this game, it can be frustrating. You are encouraged to backtrack quite a lot in this game, and as a result, you will constantly end up walking into the same enemies you've already beaten. This can be frustrating because you already know how to beat that character, whether it be through conversation or just through combat, and so you end up repeating yourself time and time and time again. I do not like the use of the random encounter system here, and I do not like the repetitive nature of the content when you backtrack. Another point of frustration is the checkpoint system. Now, in certain instances, the checkpoint system will be really fair. You're about to fight a boss and they'll give you a checkpoint. In other instances, though, the checkpoint will be like 10 minutes back from the boss. So if you lose to the boss, you have to go all the way back, maybe solve a bunch of puzzles, have some conversation. That's really annoying. I don't like checkpoint systems in general. I understand why it's used in this game in particular because of its fourth wall breaking mechanics. Still, the checkpoint systems should have been better laid out. They should have been placed in better positions so that I didn't have to repeat the same puzzles over and over again every time I lost to a boss. Now, difficulty is a thing in this game. The game can be very challenging. If you choose to go down a violent route, it can get really, really challenging. But if you're just doing a neutral or pacifist run, the game is still very difficult. I found myself becoming extremely frustrated at times trying to beat certain bosses. I won't spoil anything here, but there was a certain boss in the game that I struggled with so much, I literally got out of my chair and walked out of my house with my wife laughing at me because I was so pissed off. The game is brutal at times, but it's also very rewarding. So this is going to depend on who you are as a person. If you find really, really frustrating and challenging games fun, cool. If you don't, then you're going to have a hard time with the later portions of this game. One final complaint I have about the game is that it seems to offer the illusion of choice. You can go down a violent route or a pacifist route. Problem is that the game designer has driven the story and the content in such a way that if you do go down the violent route, you're not particularly rewarded for doing so. And in fact, the developer seems to put a lot of challenges and barriers in your way, including a very, very high difficulty curve to kind of prevent you from going down that path. It really does encourage a pacifist or neutral route through the story. And I don't like that. I think that's forced design, and I think the game was trying to present the option, to offer something new. You can do this or this, but it really just wants you to be a pacifist, and I kind of dislike that. However, it works out pretty well in the end, but still, I don't like the illusion of choice on offer here. So, my conclusion on Undertale. It is the best indie game of 2015, and if I could redo my list, it would certainly be on there. It would not be number one. I still give that title to The Witcher, but it is an excellent experience. It does have flaws. The pacing is a major problem for me, especially in the early part of the game. There are certain gimmicks and flaws that come from the old school RPG systems that I just don't like. The difficulty can be very, very severe at points, and I don't like the false illusion of choice the game offers at points. However, the character design, the storytelling, the fourth wall breaking, the soundtrack, the combat, the innovation when it comes to the use of UI, both in terms of storytelling and gameplay, the boss battles, the puzzle solving, the Easter eggs and hidden content in this game make it a must-play experience. And if you do struggle with the first portion of the game, you're finding it a bit dull and boring, please, I encourage you to persevere and push through because the reward is certainly worth it. It is an excellent game and I recommend every one of you try it out. If you found this review helpful, or you have your own thoughts and feelings on Undertale, or you want to critique something I've said, please feel free to do so in the comments below. As always, if you want to support the channel, please like, favorite, share, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.